Commander Jake Sullivan stared at the view screen in front of him. The stars looked peaceful, just like they had for the past 3 months. His ship, the Starbound, floated quietly at the edge of space near the Kepler 442 system. Jake rubbed his tired eyes and checked the time. Another night shift was almost over. "Commander, you need to see this," Dr. Lisa Martinez called from her station. Her voice carried a tone Jake had never heard before. Fear mixed with excitement. Jake walked over to where Lisa sat, hunched over her instruments. The xenobiologist's hands moved quickly across the controls, her face pale in the blue light of her screens. "What is it, Lisa?" "Energy readings. Massive ones. Coming this way fast." She pointed to 3 red dots on her display. "I've never seen anything like this before. The power output is off the charts." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Starbound was a research vessel, not a warship. They had basic shields and a few small weapons, but nothing that could handle a real threat. "How long until they reach us?" "Maybe 10 minutes. Sir, these readings, they're bigger than anything. In our database, each one is the size of a small moon." The bridge crew turned to look at Jake. He could see the worry in their faces. Chief Engineer Paul Rodriguez stopped working on his console. Navigation Officer Emma Davis gripped her chair tightly. Even Greg Thompson, who usually stayed calm during emergencies, looked nervous. "Red alert," Jake said. His voice stayed steady, even though his heart was racing. "All hands to stations. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we have unknown contacts approaching." The red lights bathed the bridge in an eerie glow. Jake watched the view screen as 3 massive shapes began to appear in the distance. They were not like any ships he had ever seen. These vessels looked alive, with curved surfaces that seemed to pulse with their own light. "Commander," Emma said from her station, "they're not responding to our hails, but they're slowing down. I think they want to talk." Jake nodded. "Keep trying to reach them." "Lisa, what can you tell me about these ships?" Lisa's fingers flew over her controls. "The hull material is unknown. Some kind of biological compound mixed with metal. The energy signatures suggest they use living systems for power. And Commander, I'm reading life signs. Lots of them. Big ones." The largest ship moved closer to the Starbound. Jake could see details now that made his blood run cold. The vessel was covered in what looked like armor plates. Strange symbols glowed along its sides. Weapon ports opened and closed like breathing. "Incoming transmission," Emma announced. "It's different. Not like our communication systems." "Put it through." The view screen flickered. A face appeared that made everyone on the bridge step back. The creature was huge, easily 12 feet tall. Its head was covered in thick armor plating. 6 eyes, each glowing with yellow light, stared directly at Jake. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding stone. "Human vessel. I am Apex Hunter Zethkar of the Vorthak. You will prepare to be boarded." Jake felt sweat on his forehead. "This is Commander Jake Sullivan of the Earthship Starbound. We come in peace. We're explorers, not soldiers." The creature's eyes seemed to study Jake for a long moment. "Peace. An interesting concept. We have watched your kind for many of your years. You are small, weak, yet you survive where others have failed. We'd like to learn more about your people," Jake said carefully. "Perhaps we could meet and exchange information." Zethkar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Exchange? Yes, there will be an exchange. But first, you must understand what you face. We are the Vorthak. We are the hunters of the void. We are the test that all species must pass." Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. "Commander, I'm reading more ships, dozens of them. They were hiding behind the first 3. The view screen split to show the space around them. Jake's mouth went dry. The Starbound was surrounded by a fleet of alien vessels. Each one was armed and ready for battle. "Your species puzzles us humans," Zethkar continued. "Every other race we have encountered has failed our judgment. They have been removed from existence. But you show behaviors we do not understand." "What behaviors?" Jake asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "You protect those weaker than yourselves. You care for creatures that cannot help you. You sacrifice your own comfort for others. This makes no sense to us. Strength comes from domination. The weak must serve the strong or die. Yet your species thrives using different methods. Paul leaned close to Jake and whispered, "Sir, our weapons are charging automatically. The ship's computer thinks we're under attack." Jake held up a hand to stop him. "Stand down all weapons. Do not give them a reason to fire." Zethkar's eyes narrowed. "Wise. Your ship could not survive even one of our smallest vessels, but we are not here to destroy you. Not yet. We are here to conduct a test." "What kind of test?" "The same test we have given to every species we have encountered. The test that determines if you deserve to continue existing." The alien leaned forward, and Jake could see rows of sharp teeth. "But your test will be different, unique, because you have shown us something we have never seen before." "I don't understand." "You will. Tomorrow you will meet representatives of our species. You will learn why we are called the fiercest creatures in the universe, and you will discover why we have decided to trust you with our most precious possessions." The AI transmission ended abruptly. The three massive ships moved into a formation around the starbound, but they did not attack. They simply waited. Jake slumped into his command chair. Around him, his crew worked frantically to understand what had just happened. Lisa ran scans on the alien ships. Emma tried to establish better communication. Greg analyzed their weapon systems. "Commander," Paul said quietly, "what do you think they want from us?" Jake stared at the ships surrounding them. Each one could destroy the starbound without effort, yet here they were, talking instead of shooting. "I don't know, Paul, but I have a feeling we're about to find out why the universe has been so quiet lately. And I'm not sure we're going to like the answer." The next morning came too soon for Jake Sullivan. He had barely slept, thinking about the alien ships surrounding them. The Vorthak had been silent all night, but their presence felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. "Commander," Emma called from her station. "They're hailing us again." Jake straightened his uniform and walked to the center of the bridge. "Put them through." Apex Hunter Zethkar appeared on the screen, but he was not alone. Two other Vorthak stood beside him. One was slightly smaller but covered in more scars. The other wore what looked like scientific equipment attached to its armor. "Human Commander Jake Sullivan," Zethkar said. "You will come aboard our vessel. Bring your medical experts and your scientists. You will witness something no other species has ever seen." "Will we be safe?" Jake asked. "You will not be harmed. We give you our word as hunters. But know this. What you learn today will change everything you believe about the universe." Jake looked at his crew. Lisa nodded, though her hands shook slightly. Dr. Karen White, the ship's doctor, stood up from her station. "I'll come with you, Commander." "So will I," said Dr. Greg Thompson. 20 minutes later, Jake found himself in a transport pod heading toward the massive Vorthak ship. The alien vessel was even more impressive up close. Its hull seemed to breathe, and strange lights pulsed along its surface like a heartbeat. The docking bay was enormous. Dozens of smaller ships sat in perfect rows. Vorthak warriors, each 12 feet tall and covered in natural armor, watched the humans arrive. Their eyes glowed in the dim light, and Jake could hear the sound of their breathing, deep and powerful, like distant thunder. Zethkar waited for them at the airlock. "Follow me. Do not touch anything. Do not speak unless spoken to. And do not show fear. We can smell fear, and it makes us hungry." They walked through corridors that seemed grown rather than built. The walls curved like the inside of some giant creature. Strange symbols covered every surface, glowing softly in colors Jake had never seen before. "Your species has existed for how long?" Zethkar asked as they walked. "Modern humans have been around for about 200,000 years, Lisa answered. "We have existed for over 2 million years. In that time, we have encountered 847 different intelligent species. Do you know how many still exist?" Jake felt his throat go dry. "How many?" 12. "And most of those hide in the dark corners of space, hoping we will never find them. They entered a vast chamber filled with technology that hurt to look at directly. Screens showed star maps with red marks scattered across them. Each red mark, Jake realized, was probably a dead civilization. You destroy entire species? Doctor, White asked, her voice barely a whisper. The scarred Vorthak spoke for the first time. I am War Chief Gorthval. We do not destroy, we test. The weak die, the strong survive. This is the way of the universe, but why? Greg asked. What gives you the right? Zethkar stopped walking and turned to face them. Because we are the strongest. We are the fiercest hunters in all of space. Nothing can stand against us. We have earned the right through millions of years of victory. They reached another chamber, this one dimmer than the others. Jake could hear something moving in the shadows. Soft sounds like crying. But now, Zethkar continued, we face something we have never faced before. Something that threatens to destroy us completely. What could threaten beings like you? Lisa asked. The third Vorthak, the one with scientific equipment, stepped forward. I am warrior scholar Kethmore. For the past 1,000 years our young have been dying. Not from disease, not from injury. They simply fade away. Our best minds cannot solve this problem. Lights came on in the chamber, and Jake saw something that made his heart stop. In the center of the room were dozens of small creatures that looked like baby versions of the adult Vorthak. But these babies were clearly sick. Their armor was dull, their eyes dim. They lay motionless on soft bedding, barely breathing. They are dying, Zethkar said quietly. All of them. If we cannot save them, our species will end. 2 million years of existence will be over. Dr. White stepped closer, to the young Vorthak. May I examine them? Kethmore nodded. We have tried everything. Our medicine, our technology, our prayers to the old gods. Nothing works. They get weaker every day. Karen knelt beside one of the babies. It was no bigger than a human child, but Jake could see the beginning of the fierce features that would make it a deadly hunter someday. If it lived. Their vital signs are stable, Karen said after a few minutes, but they seem empty, like they're missing something important. This is why you are here, Zethkar said. We have watched your species for years. You do something no other race does. You care for the weak. You protect those who cannot protect themselves. You sacrifice your own comfort for others. This behavior makes no sense to us, but we have seen it work. Jake began to understand. You want us to help your children. More than help. We want you to take them, care for them as you would care for your own young. If you can save them, you will have proven that humans possess a strength we do not understand. A strength that might be greater than physical power. And if we can't save them? Greg asked. War Chief Gorthaval's eyes glowed brighter. Then you will have failed the test, and we will do to your species what we have done to all the others. We will erase you from existence. The chamber fell silent, except for the soft breathing of the dying young. Jake looked at his team. Lisa was already kneeling beside another baby, her scanner in her hands. Karen was gently touching one of the creatures, her face full of concern. Greg was studying the room's technology, looking for clues. How long do we have? Jake asked. 1 week, Zethkar replied. If the young show no improvement in 7 days, we will consider the test failed. Jake nodded slowly. We'll need to bring more people from our ship. Medical staff, teachers, anyone who works with children. You may bring whoever you need, but remember, Commander Jake Sullivan, you are not just trying to save our young. You are trying to save your entire species. Do not disappoint us. 3 days had passed since the humans began caring for the young Vorthak. Jake watched from the observation deck as his crew worked in the alien nursery below. What he saw amazed him. Emma Davis sat cross-legged on the floor, holding a small Vorthak in her lap. She was singing a lullaby her mother used to sing to her. The baby's dull eyes seemed a little brighter as it listened to her voice. Look at this, Dr. Lisa Martinez called from her workstation. She was studying readings from her medical scanner. The bioluminescent patterns on the young are changing. They were all red and orange when we arrived. Now some are showing blue and green. Jake walked over to see her data. What does that mean? I'm not sure yet, but red and orange usually mean anger or aggression in most species. Blue and green often mean calm or happiness. I think the babies are feeling better. Across the room, Paul Rodriguez was showing a young Vorthak how to stack blocks. The creature was no bigger than a 5-year-old human child, but its claws could easily cut through metal. Instead, it carefully placed each block on top of the other, making a small tower. That's it, buddy, Paul said with a smile. You're doing great. The young Vorthak made a sound that almost sounded like laughter. Paul grinned and helped it build the tower higher. Dr. Karen White was examining another baby when she noticed something strange. Commander, you need to see this. This little one was barely breathing yesterday. Now look. Jake knelt beside her. The young Vorthak was sitting up, its eyes bright and alert. When it saw Jake, it reached out with one small claw and gently touched his hand. It's trying to communicate, Karen said softly. They're not just getting stronger, they're becoming more aware. Helen Carter, a farmer from the colony ship New Haven, was feeding several of the babies. She had no medical training, but her gentle manner seemed to calm them. Back home I raised goats, she told Jake. Animals know when you care about them. I think these little ones are the same way. Jake watched as Helen carefully fed each baby, talking to them in a soft voice. The young Vorthak responded to her touch, their armor plates shifting from dull gray to lighter colors. Commander, Greg, Thompson called from his portable lab. I think I know what's wrong with them. Everyone gathered around Greg's equipment. He had been running tests on the young Vorthak for 3 days straight. It's not a disease, Greg explained. It's not poison or infection. These babies are dying from loneliness. Loneliness? Jake asked. Look at this. Greg showed them brain scans on his screen. Young Vorthak have areas in their brains that are designed for emotional connection. But those areas have been inactive. The babies were literally starving for affection. Lisa nodded slowly. That makes sense. Adult Vorthak live alone. They don't form family groups. They probably leave their young to grow up by themselves. But young mammals need contact, Karen added. They need touch, comfort, interaction. Without it, they fail to thrive. Just then, warrior scholar Kethmore entered the chamber. His heavy footsteps made everyone turn. The adult Vorthak looked around the room with his glowing eyes, studying the scene. The young appear different, he said, in his grinding voice. They're getting better, Jake replied. We think we understand the problem now. Kethmore walked closer to where Emma still held a baby Vorthak. The little creature looked up at the massive adult and made soft, chirping sounds. What is it doing? Kethmore asked. I think it's trying to talk to you, Emma said. Back home, human babies make sounds like this when they want attention from their parents. The scholar knelt down, bringing his enormous head closer to the baby. When he did, something remarkable happened. The young Vorthak reached out and touched his armored face with one tiny claw. Kethmore jerked back as if he had been burned. What? What was that feeling? Affection, Emma said simply. The baby likes you. It wants to be close to you. The adult Vorthak stared at his hands. Jake could see something changing in his expression. For a moment, the fierce hunter looked almost confused. This is not possible, Kethmore muttered. We do not form emotional attachments. It is a sign of weakness. Maybe, said Helen Carter as she continued feeding another baby. But your young need it to survive. Sometimes what looks like weakness is actually strength. More adult Vorthak entered the chamber. War Chief Gorthval was among them, his scarred face dark with anger. What is this? Gorthval demanded. Our young are behaving strangely. They refuse to eat the food we give them. They only want the humans to care for them. Jake stood up to face the war chief. That's because they're bonding with us. It's natural for young creatures to attach to their caregivers. Bonding is weakness, Gorthval snarled. The strong survive alone, the weak die. This is the way. But your way is killing them, Lisa said, stepping forward. Look at the data. The young who spend the most time with human caregivers are showing the greatest improvement. Danny Foster, a mechanic from the Starbound, was playing a simple game with 3 baby Vorthak. They were trying to catch floating lights that he projected from a small device. The babies were laughing, actually laughing, as they reached for the lights. "I have never heard that sound before," Kethmore said quietly. "What are they doing?" "Playing," Danny replied. "It's how young creatures learn. It's fun for them." Gorthval's eyes blazed with fury. "Fun? Learning should be about survival. Combat, hunting, not this softness." "With respect, War Chief," Jake said carefully, "your traditional methods weren't working. Your young were dying. Our methods are saving them." One of the babies crawled over to Gorthval's feet. It looked up at the massive warrior and made soft sounds. Without thinking, Gorthval bent down to look at it. The baby reached up and touched his claw. For a moment, something flickered in the war chief's eyes. Something that might have been wonder, but then he pulled away. "This is contamination," he growled. "You are making them weak, soft. They will never be proper hunters." "Maybe they don't need to be hunters," Karen said. "Maybe they can be something else, something better." Gorthval's roar shook the chamber. "Impossible! We are Vorthak. We are the fiercest creatures in the universe. We do not change." But even as he spoke, Jake could see doubt in his eyes. Around the room, young Vorthak were thriving under human care, showing behaviors their species had never seen before. The test was working, but it was changing both species in ways no one had expected. The question now was whether the adult Vorthak could accept what their young were becoming. The alarm bells rang through the Vorthak ship at dawn on the 5th day. Jake jumped up from where he had been sleeping next to the nursery and ran to the nearest window. Outside, he could see Vorthak ships moving into attack positions. "What's happening?" Emma asked as she held a baby Vorthak close to her chest. The little creature was scared by the loud sounds and clung to her shirt. War Chief Gorthval stormed into the nursery with a group of armed warriors behind him. His eyes burned with rage as he looked at the humans caring for the young. "Enough," he roared. "This ends now. You have contaminated our offspring with your weakness. They must be cleansed before it spreads further." Jake stepped between Gorthval and his crew. "The young are healthy now. They're thriving. Isn't that what matters?" "They are soft," Gorthval snarled. "They play games instead of learning to hunt. They seek comfort instead of strength. You have ruined them." Behind the war chief, other adult Vorthak entered the room. Jake was surprised to see that they didn't all look angry. Some seemed confused. Others appeared curious about what they were seeing. Apex hunter Zethkar walked through the crowd of warriors. He moved slowly, his eyes fixed on a corner of the room where Mary Collins sat reading a story to several young Vorthak. One of them was clearly his own offspring. Jake could see the family resemblance in the armor patterns. "Zethlin," the apex hunter called softly. The young Vorthak looked up from the book and made happy chirping sounds. It crawled over to its father and touched his leg with one small claw. Zethkar knelt down and, for the first time in his life, allowed himself to really look at his child. The baby's eyes were bright and curious. Its armor had a healthy shine. Most importantly, it seemed genuinely happy to see him. "What has she been teaching you?" Zethkar asked, pointing at Mary. The young Vorthak made a series of sounds and gestures. Mary smiled and translated. "He's trying to tell you about the story we just read. It was about a brave explorer who discovered new worlds." "Stories," Zethkar repeated slowly. "We do not tell stories to our young." "Maybe you should," Mary said gently. "Children learn from stories. They help them understand the world and their place in it." Gorthval pushed past the other adults. "This is exactly what I mean. Our young should learn about reality, not fantasy. They should know about strength and survival, not stories and games." "But look at them," said Claire Johnson, who was checking the health of several babies. "They're stronger now than when we arrived. Their reflexes are faster. Their minds are more alert. Play and stories aren't making them weak. They're making them better." Dr. Greg Thompson stepped forward with his latest test results. War Chief, I need to show you something important. The young Vorthak aren't losing their natural abilities, they're gaining new ones. He activated a holographic display that showed brain scans. These are neural pathways that have developed in the past 5 days. The babies are growing new connections in their brains, connections that allow for advanced problem-solving, creativity, and empathy. Warrior scholar Kethmore studied the data carefully. This is unprecedented. Adult Vorthak brains do not have these pathways. Because adult Vorthak were never allowed to develop them, Lisa explained. Your species raises children in isolation. But these young ones are forming emotional bonds, and those bonds are literally rewiring their brains. Suddenly, alarms began blaring even louder. A Vorthak communications officer ran into the room. War Chief, the officer gasped. Long-range sensors show human military ships approaching our position. A full battle fleet. Jake felt his blood turn cold. That's impossible. We didn't call for backup. Your ship sent an automatic distress signal, Gorthval said with a cruel smile. When you boarded our vessel, your computers assumed you were captured. Help is coming, but it will arrive too late to save you. How long until they get here? Jake asked. 6 hours, maybe less. Gorthval turned to his warriors. Prepare for battle. We will destroy the human fleet, then eliminate all humans aboard this ship. The contamination ends here. Wait, Zethkar said, standing up from beside his child. There is another option. All eyes turned to the apex hunter. Even his own offspring looked up at him with curious eyes. The test is not complete, Zethkar continued. We agreed to 7 days, only 5 have passed. The test is over, Gorthval snapped. Look at our young. They are no longer proper Vorthak. They have been corrupted. That's when something unexpected happened. The young Vorthak in the room began making sounds together. At first, it seemed like random noise, but then Jake realized they were trying to communicate as a group. Little Zethlin crawled to the center of the room and made a series of gestures. The other babies responded with their own sounds and movements. Mary Collins watched in amazement. I think they're trying to tell us something, she said. Dr. Karen White knelt down next to the young ones. What is it, little ones? What are you trying to say? Zethlin pointed at his father, then at Jake, then at all the adult Vorthak in the room. He made more sounds, his small voice growing stronger. He's saying together, Mary whispered. I think he wants everyone to work together. The baby Vorthak continued making sounds and gestures. Other young ones joined in, creating a chorus of small voices. Kethmore activated his translation device and listened carefully. After a few minutes, his eyes widened in shock. Impossible, he breathed. What are they saying? Zethkar demanded. They have developed their own language, a language that combines Vorthak sounds with human concepts. They are proposing a solution to our conflict. Gorthval laughed harshly. Babies cannot solve what warriors cannot. These babies are not ordinary, Kethmore replied. They are suggesting that both species work together. Humans would help raise young Vorthak, while adult Vorthak would share their knowledge and technology with humans. A true partnership. The room fell silent except for the soft sounds of the young Vorthak still trying to communicate with their elders. Rick Barnes, who had been quietly helping care for the babies, suddenly stood up. That actually makes sense. Humans are good at nurturing and teaching. Vorthak are good at protection and technology. Together, both species would be stronger. Never, Gorthval roared. We are the apex predators. We do not share power with anyone. But even as he spoke, Jake could see doubt on the faces of other Vorthak warriors. They were watching their young ones, seeing intelligence and wisdom they had never imagined possible. The countdown to battle had begun, but now there was a third option on the table. The question was whether anyone would be brave enough to choose it. The human fleet appeared on the view screen like angry stars against the black of space. 12 warships moved in perfect formation toward the Vorthak vessels. Jake could see the weapon systems charging on both sides. This is Admiral Nancy Brooks. Of the Earth Defense Force, came a voice over the communication system. Release our people immediately or face the consequences. War Chief Gorthval smiled with all his sharp teeth showing. Your admiral is brave but foolish. 12 ships against our entire fleet. We will crush them like insects. Jake looked around the nursery where his crew still cared for the young Vorthak. The babies seemed to sense the danger. They huddled closer to their human caregivers, making soft, worried sounds. There has to be another way, Jake said. We don't need to fight. There is no other way, Gorthval replied. You have contaminated our young. Now you must pay the price. But little Zethlin had other ideas. The young Vorthak crawled to the communication console and began making the new sounds his generation had learned. Other babies joined him, their voices growing stronger together. What are they doing? Zethkar asked. Mary Collins listened carefully to the sounds. I think they're trying to contact the human ships. Warrior scholar Kethmore quickly connected his translation device to the communication system. The young Vorthak voices suddenly became clear through the ship's speakers. Human ships, do not fight. We are safe. We are happy. We want to stay with our human friends. Please come and see what we have learned together. On the view screen, Admiral Brooks's face appeared. She looked confused and surprised. Commander Sullivan, is that you? Are you under duress? Jake stepped forward. Admiral, we're safe, but the situation is more complex than we thought. These beings aren't our enemies. They're testing us, and I think we're all learning something important. Gorthval moved toward the weapon controls. Enough talk. We end this now. But his own warriors hesitated. They had been watching their young ones for 5 days. They had seen the babies grow stronger and happier under human care. Now they heard their children asking for peace instead of war. One of the warriors stepped forward. War Chief, perhaps we should listen to the young ones. The young know nothing, Gorthval snarled. They have been poisoned by human weakness. That's when something remarkable happened. The young Vorthak began working together on a problem that had puzzled both species. Using blocks, drawings, and their new hybrid language, they designed a solution to the energy crisis that had been affecting the Starbound's engines. Dr. Greg Thompson watched in amazement as the babies showed him how to combine human engineering with Vorthak biotechnology. This is incredible. They're thinking in ways neither of our species could manage alone. The young ones are not weaker, Kethmore said quietly. They are evolving into something new, something better than either species alone. Zethkar knelt beside his child and for the first time tried to speak in the new language the babies had created. Zethlin's eyes lit up with joy as his father struggled with the unfamiliar sounds. I am proud of you, Zethkar managed to say in the hybrid tongue. The words hit him like a physical blow. For the first time in his life, the apex hunter felt the warm sensation of love for his offspring. His hands shook as emotions he had never allowed himself to experience flooded through him. Other adult Vorthak began trying to communicate with their young in the new language. Some broke down completely as they felt genuine connections with their children for the first time. Gorthval watched this scene with growing horror. No, this is not the Vorthak way. We are hunters. We are killers. We do not feel these things. He raised his weapon toward the human ships, but his own warriors moved to stop him. War Chief, one of them said gently, look at your own child. Gorthval turned to see a small Vorthak that looked like him crawling toward his feet. The baby looked up at him with bright, hopeful eyes and made soft sounds. It wants to know why you are angry, Mary translated. It wants to help you feel better. For a moment, the fierce war chief stared down at this tiny creature that carried his genetic pattern. The baby reached up and touched his claw with one small finger. The connection hit Gorthval like lightning. Every wall he had built around his emotions crumbled in an instant. He fell to his knees as love, joy, and wonder crashed over him. What is this feeling? He whispered. Love, said Emma Davis simply. It's love for your child. The war chief wept for the first time in his adult life. Around the room, other Vorthak warriors were having similar experiences as they connected with their young. Admiral Brooks watched all of this through the communication system. Commander Sullivan, What exactly is happening over there? Jake smiled as he looked around the room. Human caregivers sat with young Vorthak while adult Vorthak learned to express affection for their children. Two species that had almost gone to war were now working together. Admiral, I think we just witnessed the birth of a new kind of family. 3 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of New Haven Station. The joint human-Vorthak facility orbited a peaceful planet where both species could thrive together. Below him, he could see the daycare center where human and Vorthak children played together. The young Vorthak had grown into healthy, intelligent beings who kept their species' strength while gaining emotional depth their ancestors never knew. Dr. Lisa Martinez had published her research on interspecies emotional bonding, revolutionizing how the galaxy understood child development. The young Vorthak were being studied by scientists from dozens of worlds. Zethkar, who now called himself simply Zeth, worked alongside Jake to establish peaceful contact protocols with other species. The Vorthak had transformed from the galaxy's greatest threat into its greatest protectors, Commander, came a voice behind him. Jake turned to see Gorthval approaching. The former war chief now ran the station's security, using his skills to protect rather than destroy. How are the children today? Jake asked. Gorthval's eyes, once filled with rage, now sparkled with joy. Growing stronger every day. My little one learned a new song from Emma. She is teaching him about human music. They stood together watching the next generation play below. Human children and young Vorthak chased each other through gardens designed by both species. Their laughter echoed through the station. Do you ever regret the change? Jake asked. Gorthval considered the question carefully. I spent my life believing that strength meant standing alone. Now I know that true strength comes from standing together. The fiercest creatures in the universe are not those who destroy, but those who create and protect. A message arrived on Aichu, Jake's communication device. Another species from a distant galaxy had heard about the human-Vorthak partnership. Their young were also dying, and they needed help. Jake smiled and opened a channel to respond. The age of nurturing strength was spreading across the stars, one family at a time.